1.5 million rials. That's what $1 costs in Iran right now, today. In 1979, when the Islamic Revolution brought this regime to power, $1 was worth 70 rials. That's a 20,000 times collapse, not over centuries, over one regime's lifetime. But here's what makes this moment different from every other crisis Iran has faced in 46 years. On December 28, 2025, the Grand Bazaar of Tehran closed its doors. Merchants shuttered their shops. Traders walked into the streets. And within 48 hours, protests had spread to every single one of Iran's 31 provinces. This matters because there's a pattern in Iranian history, a pattern so reliable that it's predicted regime change with 100% accuracy. 1906, the bazaar closes. The Shah is forced to accept a constitution. 1979, the bazaar closes. The Shah flees the country. 2025, the bazaar just closed again. The merchants who financed the Islamic Revolution are now in the streets demanding its end. And the currency that held their economy together has become the least valuable in the world. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why this collapse is happening, what the pattern tells us about what comes next, and why multiple analysts are now saying the Islamic Republic won't survive 2026. Let me show you what's happening, not headlines, numbers. The Iranian rial has lost 90% of its value since 2018 alone. When Donald Trump withdrew from the nuclear deal and reimposed sanctions, the currency was trading at 43,000 to the dollar. Today, it's at 1.5 million. But the collapse accelerated in December 2025. In the final week of the year, the rial fell from 1.38 million to 1.5 million, an 8% drop in days. The head of Iran's central bank resigned. The Minister of Economy was impeached. The Vice President stepped down under public pressure. Now look at what this means for ordinary Iranians. Inflation hit 48.6% in October, 42.2% in December. Food prices are up 72% year over year. Healthcare costs up 50%. 57% of Iranians are experiencing some level of malnutrition. 7 million are going hungry. Meat has become a luxury item. The government's budget deficit is 1,800 trillion tomans. They're printing money to survive, which destroys the currency faster, which causes more inflation. A death spiral. And here's the number that tells you the system is broken beyond repair. Iran's GDP was $600 billion in 2010. Today it's $356 billion. They've lost 40% of their economy in 15 years, while their oil revenues over the last 5 years totaled $193 billion. The money is coming in. It's just not reaching the people. It's going to foreign militaries, proxy wars, and regime insiders. The gap between the official exchange rate and the street rate is now 35 to 1. When that happens, the currency stops functioning as money. Contracts become meaningless. Savings become worthless. Economic planning becomes impossible. This isn't a recession. This is systemic collapse. Now let me show you why the bazaar closing changes everything. For over 100 years, the bazaris, Tehran's merchant class, have been the kingmakers of Iranian politics. They financed revolutions. They legitimized regimes. They held the economy together. And there's a pattern. Every time the bazaar turns against a regime, that regime falls. Not sometimes. Every time. 1906, the Constitutional Revolution. The Shah grants a tobacco monopoly to the British. The bazaar closes in protest. Clerics issue fatwas. The merchants fund a nationwide resistance. Within 2 years, the Shah is forced to accept Iran's first constitution and parliament. The bazaar won. 1978 to 1979, the Islamic Revolution. The Shah's economy is failing. Inflation is destroying the middle class. The bazaar closes. Merchants fund Khomeini's network. They provide the financial backbone for the revolution. On January 16, 1979, the Shah flees. The Bazaris had picked their side, and they won again. After the revolution, these same merchants became the regime's most loyal supporters. They got import licenses. They got preferential exchange rates. They got rich while the system protected them. For 45 years, the Bazaar and the Islamic Republic were allies. That alliance just ended. December 28, 2025. Currency collapse triggers the first major bazaar closure since 1979, not in protest of a foreign power, in protest of this regime. The merchants who built the Islamic Republic are now calling for its end. Videos from Tehran show crowds in the Grand Bazaar chanting Azadi, freedom, the same word they chanted in 1979. But this time, they're chanting it against the revolution they helped create. Protests have spread to Isfahan, Shiraz, Mashhad, Yazd, every major city. People are tearing down symbols of the regime, burning pictures of Khamenei. The pattern is clear. The bazaar has turned. And in Iranian history, when the bazaar turns, the regime falls. Check. Pattern verified. Now you might think, Iran has had protests before. 2009, 2017, 2019, 2022. The regime survived all of them. Why is this different? 3 reasons. First, the regime has never been weaker. In June 2025, Israel launched a 12-day war against Iran. They destroyed key air defenses, missile systems, and nuclear infrastructure. Before that, Israel dismantled Hamas in Gaza, degraded Hezbollah in Lebanon, and watched Assad fall in Syria, Iran's closest ally. Iran's entire regional strategy, 40 years of building proxy networks, collapsed in 18 months. They spent billions on foreign militaries that no longer exist, while their own people starve. Second, the currency has crossed a point of no return. When I said the gap between official and market rates is 35 to 1, that's not just a statistic. That means the rial no longer functions as money. In 2022, when the central bank chief took office, the rate was 430,000 to the dollar. Now it's 1.5 million. Under his watch, the currency lost 70% of its value. The government tried to fix it by removing subsidized exchange rates for essential imports. Result? Prices of cooking oil, wheat, and chicken doubled overnight. They're trapped. Print money. Inflation explodes. Raise rates. The economy collapses faster. There is no good option left. Third, the protesters aren't just angry, they're organized. The 2022 protests after Mahsa Amini's death were led by students and women. Important but isolated from economic power. These protests are led by merchants, traders, the economic class that has leverage, the same class that brought down the Shah. And something else is different. Reza Pahlavi, the exiled son of the last Shah, is actively calling for protests from outside Iran. He's positioning himself as an alternative leader. Something no opposition figure has successfully done since 1979. Multiple analysts are now saying the same thing. Bloomberg Economics. I anticipate the Islamic Republic we're seeing today is unlikely to see 2027. Hudson Institute. There is no scenario in which the Islamic Republic survives 2026 with its power intact. This isn't prediction. This is pattern recognition combined with structural analysis. The currency is collapsing, the bazaar has turned, the regional network is destroyed, and the regime is running out of options. So what does this mean? For Iran, for the region, for global markets? Scenario 1. Regime cracks down violently. This is what they've done before. 2019 protests. They killed 1,500 people. Protests stopped. But the situation is different now. The economic pain isn't going away. You can't shoot inflation. You can't arrest a currency collapse. Even if they suppress these protests, the underlying crisis accelerates. Every month of instability makes the currency weaker. Every crackdown makes foreign investment less likely. The spiral continues. Scenario 2. Regime tries reform. President Pezeshkian has admitted the system is broken. He's blamed sanctions, but also acknowledged domestic mismanagement. The problem, Supreme Leader Khamenei has rejected any deal with the West. Ideology over survival. The Trump administration offered talks. Khamenei said no. Without sanctions relief, there's no path to stabilizing the currency. And without currency stability, there's no path to ending the protests. Scenario 3. Regime collapses. Not overnight. But the pattern suggests accelerating decline. Currency controls fail. The military fragments. Regional power evaporates. If this happens, the implications are massive. Iran still has ballistic missiles, residual nuclear capability, and an ideological commitment to regional chaos. A dying regime doesn't become cautious. It becomes desperate, and desperate regimes do unpredictable things. For global markets, Iran controls the Strait of Hormuz. 20% of global oil supply passes through this choke point. Any instability there affects shipping, insurance costs, and energy prices worldwide. China buys the majority of Iran's discounted crude. They already lost access to Venezuelan oil when Maduro fell. Losing Iran would be a major supply shock. Oil volatility, regional conflict risk, refugee flows. This isn't contained. This affects everyone. Here's the reality. 70 rials to the dollar in 1979. 1.5 million today. A 20,000x collapse. 57% malnutrition. 72% food inflation. 7 million hungry. The Grand Bazaar closed. The merchants who built this regime are now demanding its end. Every time the bazaar has turned in Iranian history, the regime has fallen. 1906, 1979. The pattern is absolute. The Islamic Republic isn't facing a protest movement. It's facing the same structural forces that have destroyed every regime before it. Currency collapse, economic dysfunction, loss of legitimacy, capital flight, and now, the defection of its own economic base. The analysts are saying 2026. The pattern says sooner. What happens next will reshape the Middle East, disrupt energy markets, and create the largest geopolitical shift since the fall of the Soviet Union. Subscribe now because this story is developing in real time. The next video will break down exactly which markets are exposed to Iranian instability and how previous regime collapses have transferred wealth across regions. The pattern doesn't care about ideology. It doesn't wait for consensus. It just unfolds. And right now in Iran, it's unfolding faster than anyone expected.